So I quit drinking alcohol 2 years ago. It's actually 2 years and a month ago. And here is the reason why. So it started with my daughter, and every single meal that we would have, Luna was asking me, Dada, are you having a rum with your dinner tonight again? And Luna was only young. She was incredibly young. At that point, she was about 2.5. But she understood the concept of me drinking alcohol. She maybe didn't understand the degree to the harm that it does to people's bodies. But that moment when she kept asking, it was almost every single night. And it was as though it had become the norm for me that what I personally used to do is I was never a heavy drinker, but I used to drink if I'd have had a bit of a long day. So if I'd have had a back-to-back day of meetings, or if I'd have been traveling quite a lot, then I would have typically used that as a mechanism by which I would basically wind down. And I think it had just become a little bit too much of that she had begun to pick up on, and she begun to notice that I was maybe doing this special drink, as she may see it, a lot more often than I used to. And I kind of sat back and I kind of asked myself a question of like, why is it that I'm doing this? What benefit is it actually bringing to me? And ultimately, do I want my children to grow up thinking that drinking alcohol is basically a normal behavior that we do? And the answer to all of those was basically that I needed to try something. I needed to change something. And you know, this started very small. Like the timing of this video is very purposeful, because we're at the end of January, and many people, including myself, I did this for a good couple of years. I did dry January. And people do this. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's a societal thing that maybe a lot of other people are doing it. So you think, can I go without alcohol, health kick, all that kind of thing. But then as soon as February 1st hits, they'll be back drinking. And I just ask why. So I actually said to my wife that I was going to do dry January, but I was going to actually make it a whole year. It was going to be a dry 2022. And my wife, my friends, they was like, nah, you like rum too much. There's no way that you're going to be able to do this. So that for me was a bit of the spur as to why I should do this. But it was also that extrinsic motivation of, I'm not strictly doing it for me, but I'm doing it for the example that I'm going to be setting for my daughter as she grows up. So yeah, dry January 2022 quickly turned into February, March, April. And it was weird that people would ask me quite regularly of, are you missing it? And my honest answer was no. I think there was probably one time throughout that entire 1 year period where I'd basically sat back, I was doing some building work in the house. And I was just like, you know what, it would be really nice to have a cold beer right now. But I just didn't see the point. So it's interesting that this year then became 2, and this is where we are now. We're 2 years, 1 month into basically not having any alcohol. And a few months ago, a colleague at work, he came to me and he said that he absolutely applauds my ethos around drinking. Because basically the culture in the company, it's basically a celebration. It is this drinking culture that exists around there. But frankly, I don't partake in any of that. And I also look around me, people in my team, and they either choose to be sober or they're sober for religious reasons. So they're very, very much in the same boat. And it's a little bit weird that people kind of look at me, because I kind of have the option, let's say, as to whether I drink, and they look at me and think, well, why isn't he drinking? And I think that connotation is a little bit weird, isn't it? But when people begin to understand what my reason why is and what my motivation is, and essentially what my outcome has been from not drinking, then suddenly they take a step back and go, well, actually, fair point, fair play. So, you know, this has been my reason why, right? And I encourage you, if you're approaching the end of dry January, ask yourself, could you do February? Could you do March? Just ask yourself the reason why you are picking up that alcoholic beverage. Ask yourself what good it is doing you. And if it's helping you to relax, if it's helping you to wind down and things, I probably implore that there are many, many other things that you can do in that guise that do that exact same thing for you. If you're using it as a moment of enjoyment, if you find it in your happy place and so on, albeit at a small scale, then fair enough, that continue to enjoy. But what I implore you to do is just, rather than accepting drinking alcohol as basically being the societal norm, just ask yourself why. Ask yourself why it is you do it and what life could be like without it. And then who in your family or who in your life could actually be looking at you drinking alcohol and being inspired to then themselves want to drink alcohol. Because it's often not just about you. It's often about other people who are around you, that family unit, potentially friends and so on. And just see how you go.